I want to show you how we could use the APIs for Cisco Threat Response to demonstrate how easy it is to reach out to multiple organizations and get an answer and then actually block and take action. This is something you would do if you're a managed security provider and you need a way to reach out to multiple customers. Now, if you don't know about Cisco Threat Response, there are plenty of other videos and sites that can teach you about it, but let me just kind of start with an example and then we'll pivot over into the multi-org example. So let's say, for example, you're reading a blog post, you learn about a new threat, and you want to make sure your SOC is protected from that threat. So you would often scroll through, as you see down here at the bottom left, you'd often scroll through and look for indicators that you could search in your own environment. Thankfully, Cisco Threat Response provides a plugin, a web browser plugin called the Casebook plugin that will just scan any page you're on, and this could be anything, your SIM, it could be a competitor's blog, you'd be looking at your firewall, and you can look at all of it directly on the page. Now, in this case, I'm only interested really in what's going to suspicious and malicious sites. I don't really care about the clean or the unknown. The unknowns are all IPs that, well, I will add this one, this Office 360. That one looks suspicious. I'm going to hit Investigate. And what's going to happen is it's going to take all of those, it's going to put them in Threat Response. And when it does, it's going to answer two questions. One is it bad, which we already saw on the previous browser plugin. Which ones are good, bad, unknown, suspicious? And then, have they been seen in my environment? So you can see that it's filling this in. It's actually answering the question by talking to a number of modules. In this case, it's talking to Umbrella, Talos, my email security server, which is a Cisco ESA with SMA, and we can also talk to AMP. It's also talking to AMP, and we can talk to our next-gen firewall once that is released, and that's very imminent. Now, in this case, we found two targets. We see that there is one OpenDNS site. One site hitting the OpenDNS umbrella identity, and then we see that Homer Simpson is showing up via AMP. So what we see here is that these things are affected. Now, what I'm really interested in is who's hitting this suspicious IP. Now, let's say I've kind of hunted around and I've come to that conclusion. And here I kind of zoom in on this, and what's interesting to me is this new file hash, or it's unknown anyway. It's not known to be bad or good. It's currently unknown. And it's from one of my targets, it's actually hitting the suspicious IP. That concerns me a little bit, okay? So what I want to do is I want to drill deeper on it, and I'm going to do that in just a minute. But now let's pretend that you are a managed security provider and you have multiple customers. So look over at the bottom right. Here you see that you have your aggregation system, you have a SIM or an ITSM like ServiceNow or whatever you use, and you aggregate all of the data that you take in for customers and the searching you do in those environments. And what you would do with Cisco Threat Response, which you see at the bottom left, is you would provision it for each customer. So let's say it's Pepsi, Coke, and RC. You would provision Threat Response for each one. You'd provision the products that customer is entitled to, AMP, Umbrella, email, next-gen firewall, and everything else. And for each one of them, they would have those customers would have accounts. Your SOC analysts would have accounts, and you would have API credentials for each one of them. And you generate those directly from inside of Threat Response. It's pretty easy. Just go to the settings, and it'll walk you right through it. But when you use that, you're going to make 3 API calls. So let me show you what I mean. I see this file hash. I'm looking right here at Pepsi. This is Pepsi in this environment. And I want to know, has this same file hash been seen at my other customers? So I'm just going to copy it to the clipboard. And I'm going to use a script to search. Now that script is up at the top left. The script uses our APIs, the Cisco Threat Response APIs. And it was written by Michael Auger. And I wanted to show you this script is only 174 lines long, I think, 173 lines long. And what it does is it just logs into each customer, Pepsi, Coke, and RC, with the API keys we created. Then it's going to go through for each of those organizations, as many as you want to give it. It's going to, so here are all the orgs. It's going to go to each module, and this would be email security, AMP, Umbrella, whatever you've got. It's going to look for sightings, okay, meaning have we seen any encounters in that environment. Every time it sees a sighting, it's going to walk through it and tell me the first and last time it saw that. And then if there are any targets, meaning like a Homer Simpson that's been interacting with a threat, it's going to list those for me. It's going to actually open a case in Casebook, which I would tie back into my ITSM. Okay, so that's essentially what the script is doing. Let's run the script. So the script I'm running right now is the script you see at the top left. All right, so I'm going to enter an observable, and I'm pasting in this hash. See, notice those two match. That's the weird file hash that I'm seeing interacting with suspicious IP. Well, what's going to happen? This is going to search each customer. Now, we would expect, because the bottom left is Pepsi, we would expect to get a hit at Pepsi. We would see sightings there. And then we're also going to look at Coke, and we're going to look at RC. And sure enough, we found it at Pepsi. In this case, we found 42 times that AMP Unity has seen it, starting April 16th through today, May 2nd. There are 7 targets that were found. We also see that our email security appliance has seen it 5 times, starting April 28th and ending today. So there's enough here that I want to dig into as a SOC analyst. I don't need to worry about Coke or RC. They haven't seen it. And I can actually go to this casebook. I can plug it right into my ITSM. But you'll notice if I go to casebook here at Cisco Threat Response, let me just kind of back it out for a second. You'll see there is a brand new API case that has been created. This is the one right here, 210 today. And there is the hash in there that I'm investigating. And I can look up my targets. Okay, so that's one example of something I might want to do. Now, if I actually go back to Threat Response here at Pepsi, and I want to dig in, I'll just add this file hash to the investigation. And when I add the file hash, it's going to go back, make another pass at analyzing the connections between each of these observables and see if there's anything malicious happening in my environment. Now, since we've seen here that AMP has seen it so many times and email has seen it so many times, we would expect to see this thing fill in, and sure enough we do. 14 targets have now been seen, and I can actually see among these targets there are 1 network, 2 network gateways, 4 endpoints, 6 email addresses, and 1, our email server has seen it as well. So we actually do see this all over the place, and that matches really what we saw via the API. Now, I also notice among my domains that there is this domain that I know is considered unknown right now. It's office360.com. Now, it's hard for you to see it in this video, but that first O is a 0, and it's Office 360 instead of Office 365. Be really, really good to use in a phishing campaign. So the next thing I might want to do is, as part of this investigation, I might want to block it. So I'm just going to tell it to block office360.com. And for each customer that has given me permission to block that observable, it's going to block it. Now, if I go here to Coke, let me go ahead and search for that observable and see what the disposition is at Coke. Now, maybe while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'll just search for that at each of my customers. Have there been any encounters with it? So while that is going on at the top right, look down at the bottom left and notice that the domain was returned. It is found. It is considered malicious at Coke because it is on my private Coke block list, my block list at this company. So it has been blocked, you can see, because it now says unblock this domain. So here's my second example where I am actually taking action and blocking from within the script. Now, let me just offer one more example, and that is I'm subscribed to an email list that is sharing open source intelligence, and in that list, I've actually got some open source intelligence that tells me that there is a malicious URL, and you can see it down here at my bottom left. That malicious URL has been discovered through OpsTrust, which is an open source security intelligence community, and I want to be able to search for that URL to see if any of my customers have encountered it. So, by the way, just notice office360.com, no sightings at any of your 3 customers, but we do have it blocked at Coke now. So let's go ahead and look for this new observable. This will be our last example. And here we're going to search at Pepsi, we're going to search at Coke, we're going to search at RC, and I'll just give it away for you that at RC, I took that link that you see, the one I just pasted in as an observable, I put it in a Word document, and I sent it to someone at RC. It's a friend of mine's org. And when I did it, it arrived in their email server. So what I should see when RC returns is that URL has been seen by the email server because it's running AMP on the email server. It opened the file, it saw the URL, and there should be some sightings there. And sure enough, there is. It's been seen once by their SMA email server, and it has been seen by VirusTotal 3 times starting in February. So that's it. That's our demo. This is how you could use the APIs very easily, very quickly to search across multiple organizations.